When it comes to iconic games, Silent Hill 2 takes the spotlight in many regards, from its atmosphere, its story, to its lovable, sympathetic, floppy-haired protagonist who you wouldn't want to lose a pillow fight to. Though creating some of the most iconic monsters in gaming history, such as Pyramid Head, the Abstract Daddies, and maybe that lying figure thing that looks like someone wearing a straitjacket drenched in raw sewage, I personally think the enemies in Silent Hill 2 are kind of poorly designed. Silent Hill 1 had an abundance of enemies, which all came in different shapes and sizes, ranging from zombie dogs to headless teddy bears with Wolverine-style claws to flying pterodactyls. Not only did they have their own unique look, but they also had specific threat levels and attacks. Some enemies were slow and lumbering things, but dealt heavy blows if hit, whilst others dealt lighter attacks, but were swift and could outrun you. It was all nicely balanced and well thought out, as the developers knew that in small narrow corridors having numerous smaller and slower enemies to shiv your kneecaps and overwhelm you, and in wider open areas where you had more room to maneuver around, there were enemies that would literally chase after you, like that one monkey enemy that confused you for a female baboon and would display dominance by humping your leg or whatever. It's been a while since I played the first game. Silent Hill 2, on the other hand, has not only fewer choices of enemy, but the monsters themselves are about as threatening as Ed Sheeran wielding a wooden spoon. The best way I can describe the monsters in Silent Hill 2 is the equivalent of walking through a field of cows. They'll follow you and surround you, but the worst they seem to do is just get mucus on your shirt if you touch them. And so long as you keep walking, they just give up and leave you alone eventually. I feel as though the symbolism of the Silent Hill 2 monsters and what they represent was the main focus of the developers instead of adding to the threat that they are supposed to give the player. The biggest non-entity of the Silent Hill 2 monsters has to be the mannequin monster. Sure, it shocks the hell out of you when you accidentally mistake it for a real mannequin at first, but the worst it can do is bonk you on the head with its arm legs, to which you respond by bludgeoning it to a pulp. I won't even mention the scuttling insect bugs that attack you by brushing itself against your leg. The imposing force that is the Abstract Daddy merely places his little hands on your shoulder and vacuums your head, akin to having a massage while getting a blow dry done. Which might explain why James's hair is so gorgeous all the time. In Silent Hill 1, you are either being stabbed, choked, beaten, or even being eaten alive by a big lizard, all perfectly fine ways to die, but dying because I was nudged by an intricately designed coat rack or having a face full of vaginal fluid one too many times seems off. I assume the developers were so pleased with the look of their monsters that they forgot they have to offer a level of threat to the player, and most of the enemies can just be run past before they can do their wind-up attack. I guess I have to mention Silent Hill 2's one enemy that has become the mascot for the Silent Hill franchise, the big fella who wears a roof for a hat. He's definitely the best monster in the entire game, and is an actual imposing danger. That big knife he carries around with him is deadly and has a wide spread, which means getting around him is difficult. It's just a damn shame that he's not in the game more often. I would happily have sacrificed the walking vagina and its less interesting mannequin friend to see more of him roaming the halls of Silent Hill's abandoned public buildings. It would have been perfect. Have him constantly pursuing James because he's meant to be the very thing that is there to punish James. He would have added to the whole survival horror thing because he can't be killed by bullets or 2x4s. He would be slow enough so you could maneuver yourself around him and have the chance to find items and solve puzzles. But no, he usually only shows up in cutscenes or appears in places that are optional or easy to avoid. If I was Pyramid Head, I'd be pissed off. Imagine going through all the effort of getting up in the morning, putting on uncomfortable blood-stained clothes that probably stink, as well as putting an impractical church bell on your head, only for the guy you're there to torment not to show up and not appreciate the threatening masculine symbolism you're drenched in. All the enemies are just lumbering zombie types that we've seen a million times before. Like the nurses, all they do is whack you with their stick like a pimp showing dominance over his bottom bitch. At least the zombies in Resident Evil try to tear your throat out. The monsters look like they belong more in an art gallery than a video game, probably hosted by Zdzislaw Beksinski. I know critiquing a game as widely beloved as Silent Hill 2 seems blasphemous to some people, but many of the fans tend to overlook many things in this game by either saying it's supposed to be bad when referencing the combat system or the camera, Well, they say it adds to the game's atmosphere and general sense of alienation, like the quirky dialogue or why none of the characters want to stay in the same room as James. But then again, I wouldn't want to be locked in a room with James Sunderland. He seems like the kind of guy who would either murder me with whatever nearby electrical appliance was at hand, or talk non-stop about his stamp collection, before murdering me.